Light content warning here. We'll be discussing a guy with some strange views on a lot of things, a bit of mental health stuff, and coming right out the gate with one mention of physical violence. So there's that. Nothing as heavy as the TERF video. Also, hi and welcome to my channel, where every video is an attempt to kill my channel with content/tonal whiplash. So recently, alleged YouTubers Tara Mooney and Noah Samson made a video about a man named Sverige, centered on his hot takes on women. Yeah, so my guess is that it's pronounced like the Swedish name for Sweden, even though the guy is Latvian, which I learned from this article about how he stabbed a kid when he was 16 because of the influence of video games or something. So shout out to my Regan viewers, I guess. I hope things are going well for you in the Rhode Island of Europe. In this video, I will be discussing some of the claims made by Tara and Noah. This is my first response video. Actually, Noah and I worked on the same project in incredibly compartmentalized roles, so he had no way of knowing, but we're co-workers of the radical third wave of LeftTube. Okay, so actually that's all a bad framing device I'm going to immediately drop because I don't have it in me to edit in air horn sounds every 2 sentences. I understand the conceit of their video was more limited, but now that the door's open, I want to dive into this weird guy some more, but I'm still keeping the response video thing up as bait for views. This video is going to be quick, dumb, and full of meat. Or at least that's the hope. When I said Sverige had some hot takes on women, what I should have said is that he has some cold takes. Dead cold. Like, takes that are about as hot as a bowl of porridge made in 1320 would be today, and about as old. You see, I don't think Noah and Tara, nor Tara's co-worker, or co-writer, co-creator, Cow, went far enough in describing this man and his unhinged collection of beliefs. They referred to him as eating raw meat to trigger vegans, and that doesn't even scratch the surface of this guy's journey. As one of the many ironic watchers of his content since around 2018, at least I think there are more of us, let me take you on a journey into the mind of a man so bizarre in his ideas that he might honestly be a time traveler from the Middle Ages.
What's up? Ever since I started eating raw meat, I've been getting the same comments over and over again. Humans evolved by eating cooked meat. I understand that I'm talking to mentally challenged people because they believe in evolution, so how do I even explain it to them?
Oh, and by the way, this video is more dunk than debunk because he's just not worth the time for anything but gawking. That said, there is a bit of a question of if gawking at a man who is clearly unwell in ways that need external help is bad. Well, the thing is, he's got almost 100,000 followers, and he's convincing people to believe what he believes, which, based on some of these beliefs, is bad.
I felt more at home after 3 days of being in Ukraine than I ever did here. Why? It has nothing to do with the culture or the language, because those are man-made and have absolutely no meaning in nature. But even if you believe that it has some meaning, I grew up with German, so technically I should feel absolutely at home here, but I don't. It's because 99% of the people I was surrounded by in Ukraine were white, like me.
So that kind of settles the quandary for me. He should not have a platform. Hopefully it's clear how this isn't exactly punching down. I'm not gonna go through everything he says or offer room for debate, and I don't care if he tries to beat the meat/racism allegations or whatever. Quite remarkably, he got his start as... Are you ready for this? A successful RuneScape YouTuber back in 2008. There's a general trajectory from RuneScape YouTuber to edgy quasi-Satanist to edgy atheist to where he is now, which is meat.
This is why Christianity was destroyed for white people. I'm absolutely against all religions, but at least they revolve around eating meat, especially Islam. There would be almost no vegans if Christianity was still around.
I guess a central element to this is contrarianism and calling everyone sheep, which is maybe worrying given his carnivore lifestyle. Oh, also, he used to make weird ambient music, but that was before my time. And if you watch his videos, you might notice he ends them by just hard cutting to screamo music.
This is why so many say that they want to leave the city and move to nature or to a village, but almost nobody does. Thanks for watching.
That's been a thing since the 2008 RuneScape era. So with that out of the way, it's time to put on our 3 wolf shirts and delve into the meat-averse. I regret this line. Okay, so raw meat eaters became a bit of a thing in like the mid-2010s on the internet, and this guy was one of the stars among them, along with some dying Italian twink who insisted he was like the peak of health and hotness, but looked like he just endured a marathon of blood donations. Now, I'm not one for knocking people's appearances, and I get that this walks a thin line, but there are elements of this meat ideology that include attractiveness and physique in the health merits. Also, I'm not a nutritionist, nor am I the picture of health. If you want an idea of what I look like, just picture the guy from Criminal Minds, but like Kmart brand and with less exposure to direct sunlight. So maybe given Sferia's origin story, I'm like the anti-him. I don't know. Whatever, we'll get to that. Okay, so meat guys. These dudes were on the internet eating raw meat and claiming they were pure carnivores. In some cases, they evolved from being raw vegans or paleo-style diets or keto. Generally, they were alternative in their consumption of nutrition in some way. This became a bit of a trend, but Sferia stood out because he made and continues to make tons of anti-vegan deprogramming content, and generally, people love negativity more than hearing about the positive benefits of intestinal parasites. Earlier, I said he was a bit of a danger, and what I mean by that is that he is in fact amassing followers and does like subscriber meetups, or should I say meet-ups? In some alternative but not too dissimilar timeline, I'm sure he has a rant about raw meat's portrayal in video games and how it's bullshit propaganda that it poisons you in Minecraft. Fundamental to understanding his basis for like everything he believes is the idea of natural humans and the primacy of nature. So imagine your aunt that refers to food as good or bad based on if it has quote-unquote chemicals in it. And then imagine if that belief went from healing crystal tier to flat earth extremist tier. That's how this guy's world works. Everything is natural or not. Murder? Natural. Saunas? Artificial. Racism?
They would feel like they're in danger, and that's normal. This is what you can call natural racism.
Gender? Artificial. Yeah, so trying to clock this guy on a political compass that sticks to Euclidean geometry is impossible. At this point, I could turn the video into a discussion of the nature of conspiracy and the way people like flat earthers try and trust natural and intuitive understandings and the science of anecdotal lived experience and how all that works, but I won't. This video is for head empty times. What else does Sferia think based on the natural beyond meat? He's ACAB, so that's interesting, but it's because he thinks everyone wants to kill each other and cops are just given the means to act upon those urges, and that's unfair. Which, similar to his perspective on 15-year-olds, is more of a self-read than anything else. Like, to clarify, he thinks that Marvel movies exist as propaganda intended to get you comfortable with the existence of satanic torture dungeons, but also that they're supposed to teach you that killing is wrong, but only when you do it, not when the super cops do it. And before you turn into that thinking emoji infinitely repeating into space, consider that he's basically positing a hyper-anarcho-primitivist blend with appeals to the authority of nature and some internal definition of the natural. Sorry, I said this was brain off. He rides his bike around blasting black metal at full volume to wake people up from their sheepish daze and claims they hate him and his black metal just because they're depressed and not like mad at him for being a jarring edgelord on a Saturday. He seems to have ebbs and flows to how toxic his edginess is, but he bounces between like, everyone should shut up and get along, to leftism and religion ruined the world. I would wager his unexpected popularity and the influence of newcomers emboldened him and gave him some direction towards the stuff that Tara and Noah brought up. But at the same time, and as I already implied, he's not someone you could ever just comfortably fit on a political spectrum. Back in 2014, he had a video about gender, where he said gender was all about conditioning, which is very different from the Tara and Noah video, and his approval of the Matt Walsh doc. But then again, even back then, he blames feminism for causing divisions and apparently reviving racist nationalism. But then he goes into how there's no default sexuality and love isn't tied to genitals, so love wins, I guess. But then there's some stuff about chemicals turning people gay and how being gay is natural, but the number of gays is unnatural, so... Anyway, the video ends on a statement about the bisexual nature of humanity and a multi-second staring off into the distance.
As far as I'm concerned, we are at least capable of being bisexual. That's that.
He's, rightly labeled a weird guy. The majority of my work for this video was in finding the right segments to pull from within his vast canon of work. Thankfully, they're all organized into small videos with titles that, never mind. These things aren't full-on aimless rants, but you can't just index where specific topics are gonna come up. Like, where would you guess the quote, "electricity is a gift from Satan" appears? Let's go over some of the big topics that give a fuller sense of the experience of his content before we move on to the weirdest part. Water is unnecessary because of meat. I couldn't find the video for this one, but I swear I remember one where he talks about how dogs get all their nourishment from meat and don't need to drink water because meat has blood in it and water is not even like all that good for you. But that leads to the other point, which is that not only is meat amazing for you, but you shouldn't cook it because that burns away the goodness in it. And his evidence for this is that touching hot stoves leads to ouchie wouchie.
Maybe some of you are watching right now. If you put your hand into fire, it will be ouchie, ouchie. And if you put it on a hot stove, it will also be ouchie, ouchie, because fire is destructive, so don't put your food into it.
Further on the topic of nutrition is this whole thing about how plants are actually anti-nutrition and, like, IDK, steal your vitamins? That's right, he's not just anti-vegan, he's anti-vegetation. There's such a thing as natural humans. Again, this is core to his general premise of a natural world, and I don't even really know what he means by natural humans, but he says it a lot. As already discussed in the Notara Moonsin video, IDK, that name sucks, I tried. Sferia goes beyond the typical libertarian and the typical sexual marketplace guys into the realm of, like, biblically accurate childbearing ages. He doesn't feel comfortable around people who look different from him. And by that, I mean he's a racist, but don't worry, it's not like bad racism, just natural racism. He doesn't believe in evolution, but also sees Christianity as sheep. Religion is man-made, not natural, so it's bad.
People used to, for example, meditate or take a lot of drugs, natural ones, and do astral projection, and that was their escape from this reality. Nowadays, you're able to do it with electricity, which is a gift from Satan, so to speak.
That's from the video on esports. Congratulations if you got that right. Look, generally I don't recommend anyone follow a shred of his advice, but at least with this one he has a thumbnail that makes a good point. In the video itself, he explains that he's being literal, that being in the presence of electricity and energy drinks will kill these people by giving them cancer, and that eventually people will be, like, strapped to the gaming machines so we can keep playing as they kill us more.
It's been not around for very long, and it's evolved so much. And if you look at all the Egyptian stuff and every civilization, always when there was technology around, they always died. It's always been like that. Technology has always killed us in the end.
So he thinks there are only like a couple 100,000 people on Earth. My god, I wish I could find this one as it's my favorite. Basically, there's some clip of him walking around musing about how Germany alone allegedly has millions of people, yet he's only ever seen like a few hundred in one place. And there's empty countryside land, and not everywhere is apartments, so like, how could 80 million people fit in Germany or whatever? And from that, he concludes there's only like 800,000 people on Earth. Honestly, this belief feels like it could fit perfectly into Flat Earth canon. Apropos of nothing, he may believe humans are vampires, or that vampires are at least real. I don't know if this was poetic wording or not, but in his Serial Killers Are Good Actually video, he talks about vampiric urges. And finally, He used to be a vegan until the sun made him quit. Okay, finally we can talk about this guy's bizarre, tragic, and difficult to empathize with villain origin story. There's one video he has called Sun Gazing Warning, and he tells the story of when he was hospitalized because he basically neglected to eat for a month while he was trying to gain his energy by staring at the sun for around 12 hours a day. He was hospitalized and, didn't enjoy his time there. He hated the way that recovery from levels of starvation that match like victims of war crimes meant slowly getting reacquainted with nutrition. I don't know how common this knowledge is, but feeding starvation victims, as weird as it sounds, can actually be dangerous, and getting them to recover isn't as simple as giving them a few feasts. Your body rejects food in anything but the most controlled of portions when you're that starved. Anyway, after somehow managing to starve himself to degrees that the doctors presumed could only be achieved as a method of active self-harm/destruction, he was sent to a psychiatry ward. And that's where he ate sausage for the first time in a year because a fellow patient snuck him some. And thus, his dark revelation. The vegetables drained him of nutrition and caused the sun gazing to fail, but meat was the true natural diet of mankind. From there, he graduated to raw meat. His advice, the warning in the sun gazing warning video, is just don't overdo it. Remember to eat a bit. Other than organ failure, he said it was pretty good for him and improved his vision and clarity. So, maybe take all of his advice with a pinch of sun. Now that we've clowned on the guy a bit, I just want to reiterate that I don't think it's necessary to go into the discourse of how he's unwell. Of course he is. He's a danger to himself, but he's also got followers, and he's more a danger to them than himself at this point. Like, I wouldn't refer to David Koresh as in need of empathy, you know? Feria needs to be deplatformed before he can seek help, which he has, it seems, actively rejected on many cases, which has only emboldened him. Like, I can't stress enough that he does Skype health consultations with people and advertises that in the description of every single video he does. Sorry if that got a bit bleak. Most of the point of this was to explore how much of a weird guy he is, show where it all comes from, and end with a dash of perspective. I probably ruined the shit out of my YouTube recommendations with the research I did for this video. So yeah, there's my shallow deep dive into this guy of guys, this weird Latvian man who thinks murder is fine but saunas are killing us. I don't know if I've done his work justice here, but I don't know if I really needed to. I just felt inspired when I was reminded of this man's existence. And from that, thank you to Tara and Noah for reminding me of Svegi Wegi, despite the psychic damage it may have inflicted upon me. Your channels are a gift upon this platform, and to anyone who hasn't seen them, they are ideal means of guided tours through the weird, wild, and cringier recesses of social media and the minds of man. I guess the theme emerging on this channel lately is something I'd classify as staring into the void, given the dives into a few bleak and esoteric things, TERF origins, Spangler, and now this weird guy. I don't know, you tell me. Maybe like this if you did, and subscribe me for reasons. Next time is definitely going to be the Fable thing. This was but a detour made out of passion. Thanks to the Patreon pals who enable me to be this spontaneous and dumb. Bye, I guess.